At least I'm here to say, "Hey, this has nothing to do with how talented you are."
What's going on, everybody? My name is Hassiem Mohammed, and you are listening to The Actor's Instrument, where we discuss the qualities you need to succeed in the entertainment industry. Post pandemic, everybody finds it harder than ever before to land an agent. Everybody needs one, but there's not enough work to go around. And then we had this little strike, which meant even less work to go around. Well, to discuss the process of landing an agent and what an agent can do for one's career, I'm joined today by Victoria Kress of Osbrink Talent Agency. Victoria is a veteran agent in the youth and young adult business for over 3 decades. After working at J. Michael Bloom, where she launched the careers of, Anna Kendrick, Regina Hall, and James Vanderbeek, just to name a few, she opened and was the head of the youth division at Buckwald from 99 to 2013 and then worked as a senior agent at A3 for 10 years. Her current clients are appearing on Broadway, in television series, and independent and studio films. Victoria, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty, the elephant in the room. Why is it so hard to get an agent right now?
Wow, I think, there is not one answer, but one of the things that I think primarily makes it very difficult is the sense of disconnect that
Mm,
there is in the industry. Prior to COVID, you would have the opportunity to get in a room and chat with a casting assistant or a casting director before your audition and talk about where you were in your career, and they might be people that would assist you in finding representation. Now we're living in this world where everything, even theater for the most part, until we get to sort of later in the process, it is happening over tape. And I personally, like, there's a part of that that I really love and adore, because I feel so much closer to my clients and their process and seeing their growth. But I think we're all really feeling a sense of, like, not being able to sit eyeball to eyeball with somebody in a room, right? For example, I teach at, NYU Stone Street, but everything is over video. The sense you get when you're in a Zoom room can be so different from actually being in a physical space with somebody who's, like, feeling your performance and connecting with you.
sure.
The other thing is, honestly, I mean, every actor knows how difficult the strike was for them. And I think the other thing is that there were a lot of casualties within the industry, the agency industry, as a result of that strike. My former employer, A3, being one of them. And so I think that, the scope of, agents out there has narrowed, and I know, for example, when I sign somebody and I'm looking to potentially add a manager to the team, more and more people are saying, "Look, I'm full, like,
Wow.
I'm stocked, I have what I need." And that obviously, like, everything in our industry has contracted. The good news is, 'cause I wanna make this a positive
Yeah, I was
message,
like, this is
um,
terrible.
but no, it's not though, it's genuinely not. We genuinely, I think, can look forward to a great year in 2025. One of the things that we do at Osbrink is we track, thanks to our amazing coordinator, Lexi Sosa, we track, future projects that are coming down the pike, and that's a thick file of future projects coming down the pike. So, I do think it will shift. I also think, genuinely, because the writers were on strike as well as the actors, there just wasn't content to greenlight because
Yeah.
they had penciled down for 9 months, you know? And now obviously they've had the time to catch up with their creative endeavors, thus making it more opportunities for the actors' creative endeavors.
Sure,
So,
sure. No, I mean, look, that all makes sense. And it's also good to hear from somebody who's, I don't know, other side of the table, you could say, to see that, like, oh, there's more coming. And, a lot of folks have been saying thrive until 25. And I've personally been apprehensive about it because I'm like, yeah, sure. Another thing to be like, "Oh, don't worry, it's gonna be okay," after the pandemic, it was like, "Oh, it'll be okay," and then the strike happened, so it's good to hear that, no, we have concrete evidence. There's more being written, there's more coming down the pipeline. With this being said, I love that you mentioned, it's just harder to connect to people now, um, just due to the way the world is working. So with that being said, if you were an actor looking for representation, what's the first thing you do?
I honestly one of the first things I would do is talk to other actors. I mean, I would say for me, at least 60% of the clients that I now represent were referrals from other actors. And,
Wow.
that's just a given rule of thumb for me is I will always meet someone if one of my clients recommends them to me. Fortunately, they use their discretion and they don't send me lemons, which I'm always really appreciative of. But I think that that is one of the ways that you sort of can start the ball rolling, and moreover, I think it's really important for actors to have a creative community that's, like, lifting them up and cheering them on and having their back when they're I really I hate the idea that, like, actors sort of think of other actors as their competition and not as someone who is going through the same struggles that they're going through, you know? One of the things I see amongst our clients is when one of them books a job because everybody's connected via social media, right? They're genuinely happy for one another, and within our sort of Osbrink universe, we have our own little tribe, right? We have our own little community. And the way that you start building that community is by talking to other actors, you know? And being in class, which is another thing that I think is absolutely essential to keep the creative process like fresh and new and ever developing. And it's giving you an opportunity to connect with other people who might be further along in their careers and might be willing to give you a hand up. I mean, as an agent, there have been so many people that have followed behind me that I've tried to give a hand up to, and, the good actors see it that way and don't see it as like, "Oh, I better not introduce you to my agent because then you'll get the calls I get,"
Right.
you know?
Right, right. No, this is great, and I love that you mentioned the art of the referral, as I would say. I was also with A3 commercially, and even being with A3 was through a referral. My current commercial reps got connected through a referral, and I wasn't even referred to the right person. My friend connected me to their youth division, which you have a lot of experience there.
Mhm.
Um, and the person wrote back and they were like, I only represent kids. And I was like, oh crap. They go, but I'll like forward your stuff on to the adult side of things. I was like, okay, beautiful. And then, it worked out that way. I've been with my theatrical reps since I graduated from college 6 years ago. So I haven't had to like, pound the pavement in that way and try to find new representation on that side. But I do notice like to find new commercial representation, I've had to do it twice.
Mhm.
My managers, that was through a referral. So just driving this point home for everybody listening, like showcase isn't the end all be all. It's not about like the pay to play either, where you just like pay to meet an agent. I mean, maybe it can be smart that way. I'm not saying don't do it, but like you said it, 60% of your roster from referrals,
Yeah.
you know. What are some of the common pitfalls that you see with actors seeking representation?
Well, one of the things I think actors sometimes make the mistake of doing is they reach out once and then you never hear from them again, right? Now, obviously, you want to be respectful, and we can talk a little bit about what are appropriate boundaries, like when is the appropriate time to follow up. But for example, I see you in a play that one of my clients is in. And, I've had to be there to support my client because I always do. I mean, that's actually one of the great gifts of the job for me is like seeing my clients work. But I see you, I express interest in you, we meet, but maybe it's just like it's not the time for us to be working together, right? Um, but then it's quite likely that if you made a positive impression on me, in 3 months, I may have, uh, you know, things may have changed on my roster, and it may be the perfect time. Now, I try to keep very good records of everybody I've met and everybody I've seen in classes, and, I keep a file to sort of go back and look periodically, but, an actor who just hears no once and walks away is not necessarily doing themselves any favors. Here's where you need to be respectful. There are 3 answers. There's yes, no, and maybe later, right?
Sure.
If you hear a firm no, then be respectful and step away, okay?
Mhm.
If you hear maybe later, ask them what is maybe later, like, what's an appropriate time to follow up with you? What I generally say is 3 to 6 months for me. In a perfect world, all my clients are booking all the time, so I'm looking to, like, fill in the spots where, people are requesting and are no longer available suddenly become I can put someone in that position. Um, and that's why I think it's really important to maintain a relationship with an agent. Really big boundary I want every actor on the planet to get. Do not email an agent on the weekend or after hours or over a holiday weekend that you don't already have a pre-existing relationship with, okay? It's gonna get lost in their inbox, I mean, our minds as we have to compartmentalize our, like, 24/7 job all the time. So, our minds will completely dismiss something during that time period that is non-emergent, and we will never make our way back to you. Um, so that is something that I definitely want to make sure that actors know. Look at the time that you're sending an email. It matters. It genuinely matters. I'm much more inclined to respond to someone who's respectful of my business hours, which are like 10 to 7. I mean, not really, right? Really, they're like 10 to
Do you ever
two
stop
o'clock in the
working?
morning,
Right.
but especially with I'm in New York and I work a lot with LA, right? So,
Oh,
those are things that already you're giving yourself an opportunity to be seen in a favorable light, right? Just by being respectful of that. Yeah. So those are a couple of thoughts, just in terms of things I see actors do. The other thing is personally, Y y sending a, "Hey, this is what's going on," email, I definitely respond to, but I'm much more likely to respond if you send me a link to, like, a student film you just did, you know, or something that shows me a bit more of your work. Right? And you point out our connection, like, I know you mentioned when you saw me in class that you wanted to see something that had more dark humor, thought this was really appropriate, based on that conversation. Hope you're doing well. Bye, you know? Those are things same thing with performances, obviously. If you're doing a show, I think that's another appropriate time to follow up. If you've booked a job on your own, that's a great time to follow up, just to sort of drop the line.
now I feel like there can be a little bit of a discrepancy, the old adage of, like, you need 10 years of experience to get the entry level job, right? And so in our industry, it's like, well, do I need to build up my resume before I reach out to a rep when I need a rep to build up my resume? Like, how you know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody hasn't worked yet, let's say they're either fresh out of school or, maybe they're coming from a different industry altogether, whatever the reason may be, if they don't have a resume may build up, if they don't have a strong reel, what do you recommend? Do you recommend they build one, or do you recommend if they
Well, I think I recommend they do their research on who they're reaching out to, I mean, William Morris Endeavor is not gonna bring on a client that's got nothing on their resume unless they maybe are like, Sabrina Carpenter, who obviously was an actress
Sure.
first, by the way, sidebar, but, I think, I could be wrong,
I didn't know that.
we might have to edit that out, but But, like, obviously, but there are agents, myself being one of them, who genuinely and managers, who genuinely enjoy the development process. And I mean, my age range very specifically sits within, like, a certain 24 to 35, right? But there are people that are in the business that that's what they do. That's the nature of how they work their job. Um, so, I mean, when I meet somebody, whether they're 16 or they're 22 and fresh out of school, I'm not necessarily looking for them to have a list of credits as long as my arm. I'm looking for the spark of talent. I don't think, by the way, that you have to wait until you finally had that milestone of like finding the dead body on Law and Order to have a reel, by the way. A lot of my clients that I when I first started working with them, they had scenes from their acting class. They had student films they did, you know? But I will say that if you wanna genuinely garner the attention of an agent, there absolutely has to be some tape on you, because never in my whole life have I ever, like, looked at a picture and been like, "Oh, I wanna represent this person."
Now, this process that we're talking about of discovering and finding representation, is it any different from someone who's already represented? What I mean, let's say somebody, for whatever reason, relationships not working out between them and their current reps. Um, for whatever reason, truly, I mean, I feel like I know people who have felt like their agents weren't doing what they wanted them to do, so they wanted to move on. I know people who kinda just wanted a change of pace and, don't actually have anything against their reps, and they're like, I've been with so and so for 10, 15 years, and I just need something different." Is the process any different? Do they need to, I don't know, because I feel like there's maybe a world in which it feels a little, uh, not kosher to
Yes.
like.
1,000%. So, I mean, if you're in a position where you've had representation for a period of time and you found yourself, um, feeling like it's no longer working, every single actor that's ever approached me that's been previously represented, I have said, "Look, I can't even have a conversation with you until you clean up where things are with your current representation." Um, so I always tell clients, I have so much respect for the other people that do this
Right.
job. And particularly in the world of emerging talent, we're all actually really close friends. Like we
Sure.
talk to each other on the regular.
Mhm.
Certainly on the East Coast. I can't speak necessarily for the West Coast,
Sure.
but so it's like, I don't wanna touch somebody who's otherwise represented until they've cleaned that up. My suggestion always is don't change something just to change something.
Mhm.
Start by having a conversation. Say to your representative, it's the same thing with managers, by the way. This is what I feel isn't working. Am I having unrealistic expectations about what the business looks like? I've had a lot of those conversations with my clients over the last 6 months.
Mm.
Um, I find that, they sometimes think it's what they're doing when they're in the room, or it's what their picture's doing when they're being submitted, and it might literally be that, um, their particular the roles they're right for, we haven't seen a ton of, right?
Sure.
So I always say, if you have found someone who believes in you and not just sign you out of school or take a chance on you. And when you have no resume, or even when you do have a resume, try to fix the problem first,
Mm.
right? All of us would much rather fix the problem than lose you as clients. But here's the other thing, we'd actually also much rather let you go than re- represent someone who's not happy. Right. So it's really like, and that's where that communication thing where everybody's sort of gotten like, it's so easy for people to get in their heads, right? Like, you're not even talking to your agent or manager half the time, I mean, there are clients that, like, maybe I've talked to them 4 times since I've been representing them, and everything else is over email. Pick up the phone, make that, like, be 2 people sitting in a room, try to fix what isn't working. Um so I always say start by cleaning the slate, start by trying to fix it. If you find it doesn't it you can't resolve it. I mean, listen, when actors breach their contracts, there's a period of remediation that they have to go through. They are given a chance to fix the problem, like if they're parentally late or something's not working with their performance on a particular show. I think agents should have the same thing. They should have a chance to fix what's broken. Once you have resolved that that issue cannot be fixed, then it's appropriate to go back to the other place that we were talking about at the beginning of our chat, which is talk to your friends who are actors. Do you like your agent? How's it going with them? You know, because it becomes even more important that you're not going from like one bad representative into another.
Sure.
Right? So doing your research is really, really key. And then the other thing is, many, many of the casting directors, particularly in New York, if you've been up to see Marcy Phillips at ABC like 6 or 7 times and you're thinking of parting ways with your agent, like she might have a conversation with you. She might get you could get her point of view and some of those people might even intercede on your behalf. You have to obviously choose carefully and don't have it be someone that, like, you had one audition for and never went back in, because that's probably not a good sign.
Who's emailing me?
Yeah, right,
Um,
who is this person? But
yeah.
someone you feel, I mean, one of the things I love about our business is that agents, managers, and casting directors, like, they all love actors. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing this so that, like, we're gonna make $1,000,000. Like, I've been doing this a very long time. My $1,000,000 ship has not come in, but I do have $1,000,000 gift because I'm happy going to my job every day, which a lot of people can't say, you know?
Man, I love this for so many reasons. The main one being, I just feel like you're this fierce advocate for for agents that we just haven't had that voice of, at least I haven't had on my show. I haven't really had the opportunity to hear. And I think, sometimes actors, we get tempted by the grass maybe being greener on the other side. And when something isn't going well, you want to skedaddle. And so I think that was just so great for us to hear. How you just left off on a point about like loving your job. You're not doing it for the money. I don't know many of us who do it for that reason. How have recent events affected your ability to do your job?
I will say that, I think that there are pluses and minuses, right? One of the things that I love about the shift in the business is I get to watch all my clients' tapes. So I get to see their work, I get to see them grow, I get to see how this class or that class or this new point of view that they have is manifesting in their work. And it really does feel like genuinely I'm a part of the creative process in a way that I didn't get to be when, Marcy Phillips would call and give me appointments and I would put them out and then, the rest would be in her hands. Right. And it's given me as an agent a little bit more of an ability to um, manifest um, opportunities for my clients because I can go the extra mile when I know the tape was really excellent, right?
Right.
I can go to an executive at Amazon when a client's sent a really brilliant tape in and just, support the work of the casting director. I can have a client redo a tape if I don't feel that it was the best indication of their work. Where I think we have suffered beyond the strike, which sort of, and we talked a little bit about that, it just feels like it's 2024, it's taken so long to get things going. I know from I started my career in casting, have a ton of friends that are in the casting business, and I know for them, it's become so overwhelming. The amount of submissions and tapes that they get are like have multiplied in the thousands,
Good
I mean, I
God.
remember, like, a friend of mine working on a pilot, like, even an independent pilot, not even a network pilot, and I called her and I was like, "What you haven't responded to my pitches, what's going on?" She's like, "I got 40,000 submissions."
Jesus
Now,
Christ.
that's really great, for young actors who are trying to break into the business, because chances are pretty good if there were only 10 audition slots in a day, nobody who's trying to break into the business would get one of them. Like, the casting director would have to rely on the actors they knew could book the job. But on the other hand, it makes the competition so huge, right? And I've seen a lot of things where, local agents in the Southeast market, in Texas, in Canada, in Vancouver, in Toronto, they might not have previously had an opportunity to get their clients' tape seen, but because everybody's working online, casting directors do have that much more time. They don't have to, like, get in their car and sit on the highway for 40 minutes to try to go a mile to get to their office, right? Um, so, I mean, there's good and bad. There's good and bad, but it seems to be our reality. So, I'm trying to lean into the good and not the bad.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of I always knew that, casting because I've actually had a few casting directors on the show, and they've spoken about the amount of submissions they get. But to hear, like, 40,000 submissions for a single role is like, oof, oof. I mean, and so even just knowing that you get an audition, like, that's a huge win. That's just, like, an accomplishment in and of itself to be like, "I got to be seen," because there were maybe tens of thousands of people
Mm,
who didn't.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and speaking of how just hard it is to get in the room, what do you say to actors who believe that, maybe they don't need an agent?
I have never seen this business. There are jobs that you can secure on your own, absolutely. But anybody who wants to have a sustainable career in this business, I think they genuinely need a representative working for them. Listen, like, there are actors who are the voice of, you know what I mean? And the ad agency knows them and they will always call them when they have a job they're right for. But, like, honestly, that's the exception to the rule, right? And I know from working in casting and the amount of times I get a call from a casting director that's like, "Hey, tell me who I should see from this submission." You know, you just sort of sending your stuff to a casting director blindly, um, it's a rare thing that they're gonna be paying attention. I will say this, there is a trend in our business, that has really taken off, and that is sort of like real person casting, right? There are casting directors who that is their niche, right? And most of the time when they're hiring people who aren't actors. They're hiring people who literally are the person, are the skater rat, are the bouncer at the club, and that's how they do their job. Uh, will those people it's a relatively new development. Will those people parlay into having sustainable careers as an actor? Who knows, right?
Right.
But the other thing is, this is a hard business. Like, having someone to share in the struggle with you, like a representative, is a gift. It genuinely is.
Yeah.
Like, I always say to my clients, like, I get hurt when you don't get a job too. I mean, and not hurt financially, like, that's the least of my concerns. I mean, genuinely, I would want all my clients to book every single job,
Yeah.
but, like, I can look at someone go to the end of the line on a project and then, just, like, miss the train, and I'm right there with them, and at least I'm here to say, "Hey, this has nothing to do with how talented you are. This is a symbol of how talented you are. This is an achievement, not a loss," right? I can't imagine as an actor not wanting to have that,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I remember when the pandemic happened, I was like, "Thank God I have an agent," because I knew I was like, "It's never gonna be the same." I was like,
Yeah.
"It's never gonna be the same." So absolutely. Now, what do you say to the folks on the other side of the coin who believe that getting an agent will solve all their problems. Like,
I
I
tell
just need an
there's
agent. If I could just get an
this
agent, then I'll
this is so I think it's genuinely like a product of our culture, right?
Mm,
And I find myself telling my clients this a lot, is like, there's no one thing. There's no one thing that's gonna make the difference, you know? There's no one acting picture, there's no one job, there's no, one agent, like, there's no one thing that is gonna guarantee you a lifetime of success as an actor. It doesn't exist, you know? You can be signed by the biggest agency in the country and be number 167 on their list. And you think, "Well, I'm represented by blah, blah, blah," right? But they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about numbers 1 through 13, you know? You can sign with an agent that has had tremendous success with somebody very similar to you, and somehow the train misses his station. You know, it's like that sliding doors thing. It and it, the other thing is the clients I get the most excited about are the ones that are always doing their own thing. What you're doing here, you know? Like, you're being of service to fellow actors. I think that that genuinely has, the world has a whole sort of polish over here, shine over there thing. And it's like you put something out into the universe, you don't know how it's gonna come back to you, but you have to put a lot of different things in the universe. You have to be doing student films, you have to be going to mixers where you're meeting, like, the directors of tomorrow who are gonna be Ava DuVernay, who are gonna be Lee Daniels, who are gonna be Martin Scorsese, You gotta do that too, you gotta be in class and growing your work as a creative. I mean, there's no one thing, but most of the successful actors that I've represented have a sense of, agency over their career. They come to me, they ask for advice and guidance, but ultimately, they're the ones calling the shots, right? I'm just here to make sure if they say, "I want this shot," they get that shot, and then if they book it, they get the best amount of money they possibly could under the circumstances.
I feel like you just answered my final question, which is what are the qualities that you look for in actors who you choose to represent? Is there anything you'd like to add? Whenever
Sure,
yeah.
yes. One of the things that I like are actors that have opinions. I know that a lot of actors, they get out of school and they're like, "I just need to, like, take any job I possibly can." But actors that know who the directors are that they wanna work with, even just getting out of school, the kind of films they wanna make, the kind of series they wanna do, like, they set me afire to work to their end, right? So that's something. The other thing is, I feel like I have to say this even though it should be, a foregone conclusion, but I like working with nice people. I have seen clients who may not have been the most talented person in the room, book a job because they were genuinely a pleasure to be around, right? And moreover, they keep booking jobs because this person liked them and they recommend them to that one and they recommend them to that one and so on and so forth. And that extends everywhere. That extends to the person who's your reader. That extends to the people in your class. That extends to the respect with which you treat your representatives. When you call and you have a concern, you haven't been seen on something, and they give you an answer, you know, respect that. Don't assume that they're like sloughing you off, you know?
Right.
I mean, the nature of life is like people like to talk to people who are nice to talk to, and we
Yeah.
like to work for people who are nice to work for.
Yeah.
Like, a tiny bit of appreciation and, kindness genuinely goes a really long way.
Mm. No, that is important here because not everybody's nice. And,
Mhm.
who likes to work with a diva?
Yeah, and I've seen clients who really were on the trajectory of an incredible career, but they had those sort of, like, personality issues with people, and, their careers are not where they would like them to be.
Mm, All right. Well, folks, you heard it here first. Be nice. Be nice to people. Um, Victoria, as I said at the very top, this show is all about pulling back the curtain on our industry and keeping it real. So, can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much I thank you for being so candid with me today about this issue that so many actors are facing, trying to find representation. And my hope is that what you shared with us today is going to help somebody to find that rep or, at least begin the process to get where they need to be. So, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Have a great afternoon and happy holidays.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Victoria.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation with Victoria Kress, then you'll love the recent interview I did with Robert O'Hara. So be sure to check that out. That's it for today, folks. Big thanks to all of our listeners for tapping into this episode of The Actor's Instrument. If you're streaming, go ahead and give us a follow. And if you're on YouTube, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a beat. The Actor's Instrument is a presentation of Red Letter Entertainment. Executive producers Adam Jellicourse, Serena Esposito, and yours truly. We'll be back next Tuesday. Till next time, y'all. Peace.